But there is a limitation that because, you know, normal might not necessarily be optimal. So that's something that probably a lot of, you know, the clients or patients you work with, you know, it's like not about just having, you know, labs like blood labs that are in the normal range. You know, we don't want to necessarily just be, you know, normal performers. We want to be high performers. You know, we want what's optimal. So that's something that basically for each person's brain is very, very unique. And we assess to basically see what the balance of the different brainwaves. So not as it's not just comparing people's brainwave data to the reference database, but it's also comparing the brain to itself. And basically, what I mean by that is, so the 5 frequencies, the delta, theta, alpha, beta, and high beta we're looking at, you can think of them as, think of the brain as a pizza pie. And basically, we're trying to see how large is each slice. We know there's 5 slices, but those slices might not be even slices. So we're trying to measure to see, you know, does someone have one huge slice and one really thin, small slice? So it's basically showing how much sort of neural real estate the brain is devoting to producing these different electrical frequencies. So to give you an example, so the theta to beta ratio is a very good indicator of ADHD, particularly in children. So if children have excessive, basically when I say excessive, usually at least 3 times as much theta brainwaves compared to beta brainwaves, that shows in research there's over a 90% chance that that individual has ADHD. So there's basically this imbalance of, you know, the theta brainwave taking up this huge slice of pizza, whereas the beta being this thin. Yeah, so it's about kind of balancing out those different brain waves. And when there's a balance of the brain waves, the brain can work in harmony and all of the brain waves can work in unison, because you want to be constantly being able to fluctuate. You want to be able to get into states of, you know, increased alertness and be able to produce beta waves when you want to be able to focus and concentrate, but also when you want to be able to decompress and relax and maybe meditate or do yoga. You want to be able to sink into those slower brain waves, the alpha and theta, in order to get really deep restorative sleep. Your brain needs to be able to produce healthy amounts of delta brain waves. So it's not about taking people to get huge amounts of a certain brainwave. It's really about making sure that the brain is producing healthy levels, not too much, not too little, of all the different brainwaves we're looking at.
Yeah. And I like the analogy with the pizza and the slices. I think people can relate to this. And especially now when I look at my audience, right, leaders in tech, business leaders, for them, many of them, they come to me, the topic of focus is usually, I would say, 6 or 7 out of 10. For them, this is a big issue, generating more focus. And yeah, of course, it could be even the case that some of them could be diagnosed with ADHD. But I see this usually more as a spectrum of basically there is basically the ability to focus is either there and it works very well, or it may work not that well. And I think here, this is the good thing with neurofeedback. You have a way to systematically measure this by looking at, okay, how much do we getting on this theta slice? So theta is the more slower wave. So how big is that theta slice? And now let's look at the beta slice. This is where people are actively thinking, and maybe that slice is way too thin. So that means the theta beta ratio, if it's more than, I think you mentioned 3, right? So if it's higher, that's usually a good indication that focusing is limited, right? And so this way, it's a very objective assessment. If you do this as a baseline, maybe not just once, but over multiple sessions, you can track it and you can also see how it changes over time, right?